In the meantime, for those who are already here, feel welcome to introduce yourself in the chat to see a bit where you all are coming from. And Khorshad, who is our webmaster for tonight, Khorshad Alimov, just posted the link to the YouTube live stream in case you have any issue with Zoom.
Sorry, are you waiting for me?
Not quite yet. Let's
No,
give
right.
2-3 more minutes for people
That's good. Yeah, I
to
was just
finish
getting
their
a bit more
tea.
light to.
Two more minutes. All right, let's begin. So welcome everybody. It is a great pleasure and honor to welcome you all tonight for this webinar organized for World Migratory Bird Day. So happy World Migratory Bird Day to everybody. My name is Jeremy Berliou. I'm the director of the Nature Foundation. I'm based in the Kyrgyz Republic in Central Asia. I'll be moderating this webinar tonight, webinar organized by the Central Asian Conservation Network. So it's so nice to see so many people joining us tonight. It's kind of a great representation of how birds are connecting us all in the Flyway and beyond. So once again, please feel welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. Before I give the floor to our trio of fantastic experts tonight, just would like to say a couple of words about the Central Asian Conservation Network and about the upcoming events that we are organizing. So this webinar is organized as part of a series of online talks with the support of the Ornithological Society of the Middle East, OSMI. So in September, we heard brilliant talks about energy infrastructure and birds. And the next seminar will take place in November, on the 19th of November. So you can already tick the box on your calendar, and we'll deal with illegal killing and trade of birds in the CAF. And in December, we'll talk about bioacoustics and land birds with the participation of MLAP. So just a few words for those who don't know the CACN yet. The CACN was created a year ago by the Youth Group for the Protection of the Environment based in Tajikistan. and by Nature Foundation. And so in 1 year, we have to say much has been done. We're now a network composed of 23 national and regional organizations based in 13 countries of the Flyway. And I'd like to salute my colleagues of the steering committee here. So Catherine Hall and Khurshid Alimov, our co-chairs, and Dr. Ramesh Kumar Selvaraj, our science coordinator. They will share the email of the steering committee in the chat. So we have 11 working groups on topical issues such as bird ringing and protections of key sites, but also groups on species such as cranes, land birds, geese, and for what matters tonight on vultures. We're still working on a digital hub and the shared database. So if you have projects that are still that you still haven't shared with us or would like to share with us, please send them our way. Most of you should have received a questionnaire a few weeks ago. If you haven't, please poke us and we'll send it to you. I'd like also to announce that the Vulture working group that has been long awaited is as a coordinator. No, it's Ms. Lucine Agajanian, who will be also speaking tonight. So she will be sending out in the coming weeks a questionnaire to better assess the gaps and needs in terms of cooperation in the Flyway. And that will serve as the launch for the working group. Now, let's move to the topic of the day, vultures in the Central Asian Flyway, and our guests. So Dr. Chris Boden, Lucine Agajanian, and Vladimir Dobriev. So Chris Boden is the co-chair of the IUCN Vulture Specialist Group, RSPB's Vulture Program Manager, and SAVE Advisor. He's based in the south of the Flyway in Bangalore. So thank you for being with us, Chris. We'll also listen to Ms. Lucine Agajanian. She's the head of the biodiversity program of NABU Armenia, who will introduce us thoroughly to a corner of the CAF that we don't look too much at, so the Caucasus, and more precisely to Armenia. So thank you for being with us, Lucine. And then finally, Vladimir Dobriev, sitting with the Bulgarian Society for the Protection of Birds, and tonight speaking in quality of the coordinator of the Central Asian Vulture Project. Vladimir will tell us about coalition building for conservation of our favorite birds in Central Asia. So each of you has 20 minutes, and only 20 minutes. We'll take questions at the end of each presentations. And in the public, if you have questions, feel free to write them in the chat. And yeah, Chris, the floor is yours. Let's speak about vultures in South Asia.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, and great to be invited, and thank you for the invitation to speak this evening. I'm more used to focusing attention just on South and Southeast Asia, so I hope I'll do justice to the wider Flyway. And just to say that I do feel that this forum and network that's building up so strongly is something that can really benefit vulture conservation, and I'll come to that in my presentation. So yeah, I just threw that in to try and lighten the mood, but it's not that relevant to tonight's discussion. But
Chris, could you share, put the presentation in presentation mode? We're seeing
is it not?
The slide really.
It's not moving. Okay, that old problem again. Okay, at my side it is, but let me just try again. So
maybe share your screen once more.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
Just before.
Yeah.
Chris, by chance, are you using two screens?
I've switched the other one off, but for exactly this reason. So yeah, no, that worked when we were practicing. But so did you see my screen at all or not?
We see
yes,
you.
we did see the screen.
We see you.
You can now. Only me.
Yes. It's also nice, of course, but
no, Sorry, you don't want to just be me.
So now we can see your screen, but the slides are not in the full screen presentation mode.
Okay, well, that's progress then.
But I think we can all have a good chuckle at the cartoon and wish that
well,
we
yeah,
all
that was just
also have such a bird feeder.
Is that any better? Has that changed the slide?
We are on the second slide, but that's just what we see.
No.
If Jeremy or Hushed, if we have Chris's presentation, maybe we could share it from our side. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Yeah, it worked fine just now in the practice.
Let me just share it then.
I'll just try one more time to reshare, because it would be better.
Chris, if you share the entire screen, then I think it should work. Sometimes if you share the one particular window, sometimes it happens.
No, we're back into the
yeah.
I can share it, Chris. That's no problem.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you can just go for it. Yeah, I haven't changed it.
There you are. Can you see it well?
Yeah, it's almost full screen, not quite for me, but is it full screen for other people?
That's all I should be able to do on a PDF.
Yes, it is now.
Okay, great. Okay, well, let's just jump through the next two slides because you've seen the great. And I just wanted to refresh that we're dealing with 23 vultures worldwide. And next slide, in Asia, we have, next slide, yeah. We have 10 of those species represented, and that's obviously a massive proportion of the global vulture population, but of course we all know the high proportion of that are threatened. But just to point out that for South and Southeast Asia, we have 9 species, but the lappet-faced vulture just creeps in the Arabian Peninsula. Yep, next. And just a quick excuse to show you some nice, pretty slides. Next slide of 2 or 3 of them. That's the Indian subspecies, and then the gyps vultures and the lappet-faced. Okay, so this presentation, I want to focus on some of the, well, obviously the challenges of not only monitoring populations, but identifying threats and getting everyone on the same page. And if we look, we've managed to get publishable monitoring data from several of the countries, and that is generated with a lot of effort in order to standardize that work. And you'll see very differing trends between the countries, and the very strong, the only positive trends that I'm aware of anywhere in the region is from Nepal, bottom right there. Next slide. So the challenges of monitoring such mobile species are often underestimated, and this is something worth emphasizing. I mean, for the cliff nesting species, it's slightly easier in that you've got a more limited set of nesting sites that you can search. For tree nesting species, they are notoriously mobile and difficult to really know that you're actually monitoring the whole population or something that's meaningful because of that mobility. So that's for next slide for monitoring nesting. But actually, the more standardized methods that are more applicable are often road transects or standardized point counts. As I said, nest counts can work, especially for the cliff nesters. And increasingly, citizen science and eBird data is becoming sufficiently widespread to start kicking in as something really useful, certainly here in India. And there are more sophisticated methods of mark recapture if you can really get to that. So monitoring itself presents lots of challenges and ones that we could have. I mean, I think you could have a whole conference just about the challenges and ways of overcoming vulture monitoring problems. Next slide. The threats. Threats to vultures, again, we often rely on number 4 there, the expert assessments of what threats are, but we rely on a lot of anecdotal data often in terms of actually knowing what threats are the predominant ones for a region. And having mortality database is something that can really help with this, and that's something that we don't have sufficiently at the moment in the region. Remote tracking and monitoring of birds, particularly of the wild birds, is something which I will come back to in a minute, because I think that presents probably the best opportunity to overcome some of the intrinsic biases that can creep in threat assessments. But both of those rely on very good autopsy and documentation. So we often come back to the expert assessments, which were really central to the MSAP process. The next slide, the multi-species action plan, which was produced, and I think the most important output from all of that huge exercise and all those workshops and was the threat assessment maps, which are summarized here for our region. And one thing that we can generalize here for our region is that 3 of our 4, I mean, it divides by threats into different regions, and it's unintentional poisoning, poison baits, which is for 3 out of 4 the top threat within Asia. Only South Asia, where the unintentional poisoning NSAIDs is number 1. So this is really of huge value, but something we need to update. The interim assessment of the MSAP just over a year ago didn't change this threat assessment in any significant way for our region. It did so more in Africa, where belief-based use had crept up the scale. Next slide. So just to run through those key top threats very briefly. As I said, poison baits is the most predominant threat from the region as assessed by experts. But this is one of the more visible threats, and I've started talking quite frequently about visible threats and invisible threats to vultures. And poison baits often kill the vultures quickly enough that you can determine what has really happened and why the birds have been killed. Next slide. Another one of the more visible threats is power infrastructure, and both electrocution and collision, and that can be through wires, but also through turbines, of course, wind turbines. And this is definitely a threat which is far from going away. I think it's becoming an increasing concern. Next slide. The number one threat for South Asia, which is the one that I end up talking and rabbiting on about from every day of my life, is the veterinary NSAIDs, not only diclofenac, but ketoprofen, aceclofenac, nemesilide, and others, which are some of which are not yet fully understood. And that is number one threat, but in South Asia, but is also a significant threat for more widely. Yes. Next slide. So a further invisible threat that I wanted to just mention, because it's so difficult to monitor, is food shortage. And in Southeast Asia, that is, along with poison baits, one of the top threats. And there's actually a recent publication further illustrating how food shortage is the problem. But perhaps I should just emphasize that on the NSAID threat, the reason it's so invisible is because the birds don't die for 1.5 to 2 days after ingestion of the drug, and by that time they're 40, 50 kilometers away from the source. Next slide. But food shortage is even more difficult. I just wanted to mention a couple of other threats which are lurking, and certainly in more in the northeast and towards China, belief-based use is a concern, and certainly is a threat. In Africa, of course, it's a much more widespread threat, but it's again one arguable as to how visible it is. Next slide. And the final one I just wanted to mention and make sure is firmly on everyone's radar is lead poisoning. Probably not a threat here in South Asia, but areas where hunting and lead shot is more widely in use for ungulates and things, definitely one that is an invisible threat if it's there. So one to really keep very much alert on. Next slide. The one way that we have been overcoming this problem of the more invisible threats and the monitoring of vultures in South Asia, and particularly in Nepal, has been through widespread satellite tracking of birds. But it's not just satellite tracking, it's satellite tracking with very, very live monitoring of the birds, so that it's mortality monitoring as much is probably the more important aspect of it, rather than just the movements. And it was on the basis of this information that we were able to declare the world's first truly vulture safe zone in southern Nepal. Next slide. So I've covered that very briefly, the monitoring challenges, the threats identification challenges, but then, you know, as well as we may know what's going on, we need to then coordinate how to address those challenges, and make sure we've got good scientific background to doing so. Here in South Asia, as you're probably all aware, we've created this consortium of 33 organizations which monitor primarily from the 6 countries concerned, and that was launched in 2011. Next slide. This was our recent meeting in Cambodia earlier this year. Next slide. Having such meetings has been a central part of it, and of course difficult to resource, but we've had annual meetings at least online, but in the past we've done them mainly in person. There's the region that I'm talking about and the primary species. Next slide. And the backbone of this consortium is what we call the blueprint for recovery. So basically an action plan for the region, and keeping that up to date, keeping it properly scientifically justified, and reporting back on it as a consortium and then updating it further. I won't go into that in any more detail. Next slide. And but just to show you a little bit of what some of it looks like in practice in terms of a document. Next slide. And so SAVE is, although it's dominated by NGO sector, it does have government engagement, and very directly so in Nepal and Bangladesh, and indeed a government institute or two here in India. But to get the wider government buy-in on these actions that are needed, there was a kind of parallel RSC Regional Steering Committee for Vulture Conservation established just for the South Asian countries initially back in 2012. It's extended recently to include Cambodia. And that is an intergovernmental body which supposedly meets each year. It's struggling to do that, but is a level of engagement, intergovernment engagement, which is really important for getting governments to actually act on their national action plans and regional and the MSAP itself. Next slide. And a further and very similar kind of network, which in fact is we're hoping will intertwine directly with the RSC, is the CMS. That's Conventional Migratory Species Raptors MOU, is building up a network of government representation for all vulture range countries in across Africa, Europe, and Asia. So trying to get this up and running is something that Umberto Galawossi is the hub of in Abu Dhabi, and hopefully that can really take off and bring stronger government engagement. I think we're all aware that government engagement on this is not as strong as we'd like. Next slide. So that's the main points I wanted to make. I hope I've given you a reasonable overview. This is the SAVE website. Do write to me if you want to be added to mailing lists for either SAVE or indeed the Vulture Specialist Group for the newsletters of that, which, okay, but back to you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Chris, for a very important and interesting presentation, really. I think quite inspiring for the rest of the Flyway, for the rest of the Central Asian Flyway. We told 20 minutes, but we were shorter than 20 minutes.
Well, that's unusual. Okay, well, one thing I just want to add is that, as I said in my introduction, is that I do see this network as being really exciting in terms of building on those three networks that I've just mentioned and trying to pull them together and build on that. So that's the challenge we have, I think.
Okay, thank you. We have time for a few questions. If you have questions, please raise your hand. I'll give you the floor any questions for Chris? So until the shy ones raise their hands, I do have one question. For those who are not familiar with the SAVE consortium, would you be able to describe a little bit more how it was created? What were the driving force for it?
Yes, sure. Yeah, no, I did skip over that rather quickly. So there were a number of players doing really great work in various parts of South and Southeast Asia, but there wasn't a network and there wasn't a sort of common action plan that we could really work to. So we and dare I say, there was also a lot of interest and other organizations very well intentioned, but not necessarily following the more scientific lead. So we felt it was really valuable to provide, you know, a common website and to pull together the key partners in the different countries. And yeah, it took a little persuading for some of them to sign up, but actually, as soon as we met in person, it's been really important. And having, yes, I mean, SAVE has very transparent structure of not only the experts on the technical advisory panel, but also fundraising committee and advocacy committee, which are quite active in terms of sharing and developing methods that they're finding helpful. And that's, I think the fact that the level of engagement has grown and sort of trebled since we created SAVE back in 2011 shows that the partners are finding it helpful. And yes, and in fact, the SAVE blueprint that I mentioned was incorporated directly into the MSAP. So the level of acknowledgement of the expertise that had gone into that was very reassuring, and that's sort of helped in the process. But yeah, thanks for that. Good to expand on that.
Thank you very much, Chris. We have one question in the chat from Mahesh Bilaskar, but whether NSAIDs are responsible only for the death of gyps vulture or other species as well?
Yeah, great question. We know for a fact that Cinereus vulture is susceptible. We've had some recent interesting data coming in on Egyptian vulture, but it's not fully conclusive. We still haven't fully established for Egyptian vulture, but it's actually 4 of the gyps vultures. No, in fact, more than that, because we've also tested on African gyps vulture species and found them equally susceptible. And further to that, steppe eagle has died with exactly the same symptoms, gout and high levels of diclofenac in in Rajasthan in North India. So, and that's also published. So we believe that aquila eagles are susceptible, and there is evidence that other falcons are much less susceptible. Yeah, we believe that most vultures are likely to be highly susceptible, but it is so tough to get that full confirmation of the data without doing really tragically lethal tests on birds to demonstrate it. So but the assumption is there. And we've just had some recent interest from South America, wanting to test more of the species down there, and well, at least look out for samples from raptors there to check, and also to look at sublethal effects as well. So yeah, it's I could go on.
No, it's as you said, it could also be a full webinar or series of
Yeah.
webinars on this.
Absolutely, but thanks for the question. Yeah.
Lucine, before I give you the floor, I think you have another question that you just put in the chat. Would you like to ask it directly?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. And my question is, you mentioned that you did a live monitoring of threats via satellite telemetry. I'm interested on the financial part of it, like how big it is and how feasible it is.
Yes, and in order to get enough data to be remotely confident that you've got a safe area, you really need 50 bird years as a minimum in an area to be able to establish what the survival rates of birds are. So it's it is expensive there, and I mean the alternative when we're talking about NSA threats, we have two strategies of looking for and monitoring that threat, either through satellite tracking enough birds, which, as you allude to, is an expensive, and it's not just the tags, of course. It's having a team that you can mobilize to find any dead vulture, and that's a big task. And then also get the tests done, the laboratory tests, is again another further expense. So it's a big deal. In fact, in Israel, there's the monitoring being done there, and there was a short talk on that last year in our open day, showing how their live tracking was able to pin down NSA threats, which nobody would have had any clue was going on, diclofenac and actually flunixin in particular. There was another drug which is causing mortality in Israel, and we've just had the first case here in India as well, proven for Himalayan griffon. So it's a big job, as you're alluding to, but of course, satellite tracking, you learn a lot more as well as just the mortality, and people get excited about the movements, and you can learn a lot about the biology. But yeah, it's not a small undertaking to do it on a scale that you're going to get a meaningful answer. Yeah, just tracking one or two birds, and often you find people tracking a rehab bird or a released bird, which is, it's not really going to generate the kind of information we need just doing the odd birds like that. So yeah, it's a lot is the short answer. But
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. There are also two more questions, and then we'll move on. So two last questions for you. One is from Ramesh, but with the increasing reports of vulture collisions with energy infrastructures such as power lines and wind turbines pose a challenge to establishing successful vulture-safe zone in South Asia. And the other question is how new NSAIDs are tested on vultures, especially for vultures that come under critically endangered status.
Okay, I'll start with the second question, and you can remind me of the first. So the testing is done on Himalayan griffon vultures mainly, which are, and we can, on juveniles, which are caught wild and then used for the testing, and then they can be released again, obviously, unless they were one of the unfortunate ones that's testing a lethal drug. But so, yeah, it's awful that we have to do that. It's, I mean, we were using African whitebacks in South Africa to do the initial tests of meloxicam, for example, and indeed some work on nimesulide there as well. But of course, those vultures have since become far more threatened, and that's no longer an option. So, yeah, so that's and the IVRI in conjunction with that's the Indian Veterinary Research Institute, in conjunction with BNHS, have taken that on as a challenge to get that happening. So it's funded by the Indian government, but it's very, very slow and small. The second question was on power infrastructure, increasing incidents. Yes, and one curious thing that we are noticing is that released vultures are more susceptible to being electrocuted or having collisions than wild vultures from tracking data. And I'd be interested if others have noticed this in other parts of the world. This is somewhat preliminary, but there is an indication of that. And although I mentioned that, you know, power infrastructure is one of the more visible mortality causes, there's no doubt, as Ramesh alludes to, that it is an important mortality cause, and certainly in some areas, and can be mitigated against with in various ways, but it is something that needs taking into consideration with release sites. But you mentioned vulture safe zones. Yes, I mean, I think I would put it here in South Asia as threat number 3, but it's probably close behind poison baits in terms of severity. But we simply don't have enough tracking data to really show that for sure. But yes, it's a concern. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chris. There is another question in the chat. What I suggest that we move on in terms of presentations, and if we have time at the end, we take it too. Sorry, very, very much. And so now I will give the floor to Lucine Agajanian, who is the head of the biodiversity program of NAMBU Armenia, and also the CACN's Vulture Working Group Coordinator. The floor is yours, Lucine.
Thank you very much. Thanks for this opportunity to share about work in Armenia. And today I will tell you mostly about our work within NAMBU's branch in Armenia, what we do with vultures, and when we started, and what we plan to do in the future. So for those who don't know, maybe Armenia is a landlocked country in Lesser Caucasus. As you can see, we have 4 neighbors: Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Iran. And it's a very mountainous country, small in sizes, but not small in landscape varieties, and many suitable areas for vultures to breed. In Armenia, we have 4 breeding species of vultures, which are Egyptian, Cinereus, Birded vulture, and Griffon vulture. And in 2024, one case of spotting Himalayan vulture just on flight was registered, which is amazing news for us, which makes 5 vultures for Armenia occasionally. So how did we start? We started actually in 2018. We established a project, Birds of Prey Research and Conservation, with a main focus on vulture species and 2 eagle species. Actually, the most focus was in the beginning on Egyptian vulture. But in the beginning, it was actually based on eco-education mainly. We were doing eco-educational activities in schools, in universities, in public areas to raise awareness about vultures within the public. And we did it, we continue to do it even until now, because we think it's important to raise awareness, because people usually think that vultures can be not that good, and it's important to change their opinion and to share with them that they are actually very important for the nature. So how did we start? What was our vision? Because we didn't have like much data. All the data came from Soviet times, and it was not up to date. We obviously needed to understand where, how many like breeding pairs do we have, and what are the threats to them. So to do that, we modeled suitable breeding areas, and based on that, we started to search for the nests. And our plan was to do yearly monitoring of the nests to understand their breeding success and trends, population trends. And we also wanted to do threat identification, migration studies, wintering ground studies, and development of conservation measures based on our collected data in Armenia. We also had online cameras and camera traps in the nests for nesting biology studies in Armenia. So this is our, for the cliff nesting vultures, which are 3 in Armenia: Egyptian, Birded, and Griffon vulture. And Cinereus is mainly nesting in juniperous trees in Armenia. So for those 3 species, we modeled the areas where they can nest possibly, and we started by doing field works in those areas, by dividing those areas into squares and trying to understand which square has how many nests. And in the white, you can see how many areas we actually managed to cover, like almost 90%, let's say. And we also had a very, very productive cooperation, international expedition in 2024 with BSPB, with Czech Society of Ornithologists, and with Nabu Kafkas. Different scientists, like vulture specialists, came from those countries and helped us in our monitoring. And I think this is a great way in helping each other in different countries to do the more faster and more quality. So for the 2026, hopefully we will cover the last region that is left at the moment, which is Unique region, and we can accomplish our knowledge about their breeding areas, and we can concentrate on threat studies. Let's go with start with Egyptian vulture. So a bit about the history. From 1973 to 1994, only 3 nests of Egyptian vultures were known, documented, let's say. But the nesting population was estimated as 40 to 60 pairs, but without any evidences of actually nesting Egyptian vultures, but based on abundance of the birds along the country. And the same numbers were taken to the Red Book of the Armenia, which is the official source, let's say, at the moment about the population size of Egyptian vultures in the Armenia, but which is not accurate at all and needs to be up to date. So from 2021, 2023, when we did the expeditions, we found 14 nests, and when the international team also joined us, 5 new nests were found in Armenia in different regions, and which makes 19 active nesting pairs in Armenia. And Oceanic region remains still unstudied at the moment. Yeah, and we also started to do GPS tagging of Egyptian vultures to understand, first of all, their migration routes and the threats alongside their migration routes, and also to raise awareness about the birds. From 2021 to 2025, we tagged 7 Egyptian vultures. In 2021, the bird was tagged in Lori region, which is in the northern part of Armenia, and after 44 days of the first flight, it started migration. It went to Ethiopia, but unfortunately, we lost connection. We tagged with Aquila tag, and the method we used was backpack method. Back then, we were using backpack method. The next year, in 2022, we tagged 2 birds from the same nest, siblings, and the elder one started to migrate 35 days after the first flight, and the younger one after 32 days. And as you can see from the elder one, we lost connection, and we assumed that the bird didn't manage to cross the Red Sea, unfortunately, because we lost the connection, and until now we didn't receive it back. And the younger one succeeded. It's still alive, and you can see that it even made a very interesting travel to all the way to Turkmenistan last year, and after went back to Yemen. It winters in Yemen mainly, and even like wintering in Yemen during the first 2 summers, it didn't go up like as they usually do. This year it came back to Armenia and actually visited the nest it was born at. And at the moment it's on the way to Yemen again. And 2023, we tagged another bird, which was unfortunately caught in Iraq. And the last signal was from the Baghdad animal market. And we tried to connect our colleagues from Iraq, tried to do something about that. But because the connection was lost, the bird was never found, and we couldn't track later what happened with the bird, because there are too many animals in that market, and it was impossible to see which bird is ours and where is our GPS tag. And in 2024, we tagged 3 Egyptian vultures, sorry. Again, these are 2 siblings from the same nest, and we used, in this case, Ornithella tags, and we did leg loop tagging, and you can see that the elder sibling actually traveled all the way to Kenya, which was very interesting. It was the most southern spot for us from our birds that we tagged. The younger one, we lost connection again in Saudi Arabia because there is a roaming problem in Yemen when the SIM card is from the European Union. And as a tip from with Armenian SIM card, there is no roaming problem in Yemen, so we still get connection from the birds which we have, like Armenian SIM card. So, and the last one, we tagged in Garni Gorge, and again, we lost the connection in Saudi Arabia, and we again assumed that the bird should be in Yemen because there is no data on mortality of the bird at the moment. And we also did wintering studies in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. We did expedition to Ethiopia, and there we southern from Semera, we found around 1,300 wintering Egyptian vultures with different age groups, and they were following the local nomadic groups which were pasturing their goats. And in all the other parts of the country, we didn't record other Egyptian vultures, so the concentration was actually from Semera to Tarnakil depression in Ethiopia. We also had like online cameras, which some years they worked very good, and some years we had a lot of technical problems. But thanks to this camera, we actually indicated one case of CACN in 2021 in the nest in Lore, which was actually very interesting. Regarding the birded vulture, so the birded vulture, from until 1996, only 2 nests were actually known, documented. And but in the Red Book of Armenia, it's until now written that there are 8 to 10 nesting pairs. But another person, Karen Aghabagan, did a study from 2013 to 2019, and his data shows that there are from 11 to 12 nesting pairs in Armenia, And our studies from 2021 to 2025 shows that there are 15 nesting pairs, but without unique region. As you can see in unique, there are also 2 dots. It's just we know sporadically this data, but there should be at least from 3 to 6 nests. And if we succeed to study this next year, we will have the complete information about their nesting sites in Armenia. And those are the habitats that the bird is using as nesting sites, preferring high cliffs. And our goal is to have like caretakers for all the nesting sites of the birded vultures, not only birded vultures, but also other vulture species. We already have caretakers for 3 of them, and we work with local communities to find more people who are willing to contribute in their conservation. Until now, we took 3 birded vultures, and they are very local. Well, Armenia is a small country, but one of them actually did a migrational loop. The first one tagged in 2022, went to winter in Iran, and after came back to Armenia. As here, I think, okay, doesn't matter. And the second one actually showed a different way of moving. It went to the north and also to Azerbaijan, and it's a local on the, let's say, country level. It moves a lot, still young, but it has preferred cliffs, and during the summers, because the food availability in specific places, because where people keep the sheep, you can see where the summering places are. They mainly keep all the summer in that areas, which is one of them is Garama mountain range, and another one is in Azerbaijan. So, and the third one, which is from the last year, it's again like keeping very local, and at the moment is on the border with Armenia and Azerbaijan. All of them are alive, giving signals constantly. We also put camera traps on the nests of birded vultures, but unfortunately, because of the wrong choice of the camera trap, as you can see, it was like too zooming in. But hopefully in the future, we will manage to get a better quality data on this. About griffon vultures. So griffon vultures are the only species that we did only like nesting counts, and we didn't do satellite telemetry about their numbers. From in the Red Book of Armenia, it's estimated 35 to 40 nesting pairs. Aghababian refers that there should be 48 to 54 nesting pairs by 2019. And actually, this data could be true because we within our studies found 47 nesting pairs with active nests, but without unique region. And in unique region should be more like from 10 to 20 nesting pairs. Hopefully we'll see next year again. And the Cinereus vulture, the last one. So until 1970s, it was known just very randomly that there are like 50 breeding pairs in Armenia, but with no evidence of any nests in the region. The only nest was found in Khosrow Forest State Reserve, again about 1970s, but still the nesting breeding pairs were estimated as 50 breeding pairs. And the same data is taken for the Red Book of Armenia, and this is the official data. And then you can see on the map that they are mainly concentrated in Khosrow Forest State Reserve and in the southern part of Armenia. In 2007, from 2003 to 2007, Armenian Society of the Protection of Birds did study on Cinereus vultures, and they discovered that the whole population remains only in Khosrow Forest State Reserve, and there are only 7 to 8 nesting pairs. All the other nesting locations were empty, which is a very low number. And our study, we did like studies in new parts of Armenia, in Vulture region, where also we have like juniperous forests, and we found 5 new locations for the Cinereus vultures with 5 nesting pairs, and we annually now monitor that area, that nests, and the breeding success last year and this year were 100%, and we also satellite tagged the birds to understand where do they go. Until now we successfully tagged 6 birds, and interestingly, so one of them, they start their migration very late at late November, and one of them spent its winter in Iran, the most southern part of Iran, and the summer in Russia. They actually crossed the Caucasian Mountains and went to where, like above Dagestan, close to Caspian Sea. And the other one did the same, but it wintered in Saudi Arabia, and my colleagues went to Saudi Arabia to study the wintering grounds of the birds, and it was a very interesting expedition as well to see where do they locate it during the winter. And the summer, again, it was like in Russia, crossing the Caucasian Mountains. And at the moment, both of the birds are flying back to their wintering grounds. But the birds that we tagged this year are still in their breeding area, nest areas, and they most probably will start again the migration in late November. All of them are alive, and actually the only birds that we had lost individuals are Egyptian vultures. So about the threats in Armenia, there was no threat assessment in Armenia. We just did occasionally. And but we never found. Last year we were doing electrocution studies in various regions of Armenia, but we never found a vulture dead because of electrocution or collision. For poisoning, we actually we plan to do studies on that. We have no idea at the moment. Shooting can be an issue because there are some hunters who actually think that shooting a big bird can be, a very brave thing to do. And there were cases in Armenia of shooting griffon vultures, 3 of them, but last few years, 6 years, nothing like that happened. At least we don't know about that. So disturbance is also like a big problem because of tourist development nowadays. And Armenia has many beautiful cliffs. All those tourist infrastructures are being developed without taking into account nesting sites of the vultures, and sometimes can be very disturbing. Stealing chicks and illegal trade. For example, last year we had this case of people trying to take out the birded vulture from the nest to sell it to some other countries. So and you can see here, it's not a vulture, but it's a bird, and we have this it's a website where people can sell basically everything, and this is an example how they can also sell animals on those websites. And what we plan to do is we want to continue to work with local community to involve more local community and hunters in protection of vultures, to create volunteer caretakers group. We try to continue to study the electrocution and collision, and we continue, of course, eco-educational activities. Our plan is to establish vulture restaurants, but because of vulture food safety, we still think of what can be the ways to do that in Armenia, because there is no regulations on that. We also plan to do border control staff seminars for the CITES to try to avoid the cases of illegally taking out the birds of the country. We will enlarge the caretakers group, as I already mentioned, and we also work with alpinists to inform them not to work with these smugglers who take out the birds of the country. And also we plan to continue to do more GPS tagging to understand more, and to actually it's a very good way to keep vultures safe, because when people know we work with this specific nest, they avoid to do something in their nests. And we plan to create a protected area where the vultures nest, near the areas where they nest. Thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully it gave you overview of our work in Armenia. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very, very much for this exhaustive presentation of what is happening in Armenia. Really, this is well, great work that you and your team have been doing on the western side of the Flyway. So we have a few questions actually in the chat. We have the first question was how you reached the conclusion that one of your Egyptian vulture that you lost the track of might have died actually.
So because it's not a final conclusion. We cannot say like it's a final conclusion, because we used this Ornithella tag, which doesn't give information if the bird is dead or no. But because we knew that the bird should come back, if there is a connection problem, for example, there is no roaming, the bird should come back like after 3 years in wintering sites. We think that maybe if it didn't come back, already 5 years passed, maybe it died, but it's not 100% conclusion on this. If it was like Ornithella tags, we could say, because it gives like mortality information.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question is about the role of community caretakers to take care of nests. Would you be able to elaborate a bit on it? Explain a bit what would be the role of communities?
So by saying community, it's just local people who are interested. They just, when we went to work in that areas, they were interested on what we do. And we had this idea that we can maybe involve them in our work, in tagging, for example, in nest monitoring. And each time we go to do monitoring or tagging or any other activity, they just join us. And this creates a very specific bond between them and vulture species. And actually, they are involved in a way that they send information to us from the nests daily, basically. Every day, they photograph the bird, the fledgling. For example, there is this one caretaker who every day sends the picture of the fledgling of a birded vulture, which is in Gundevang Gorge. Others are regularly going, visiting nesting sites and taking pictures if the nest is okay, if the chick is still there, if they see any strange cars or strange activities near the nest. So they inform us each time, and we reply immediately. We are in touch, and if something really strange is happening, we are actually very mobile, and we go and check with them together. And actually, they became our ambassadors, let's say. We gave them this how to say it, not a position, but we call them Nabu's ambassadors in a way that they are our ambassadors in the regions, and they basically, with the work with the birds, they can represent us, and they are in touch with us, and they collect information for us regarding birds.
Right, wow. That's quite a great endeavor you have. Here, Chris is asking which species of Gyps fulvus is in Armenia, and if there are any studies on the difference between fulvescens subspecies and fulvus.
I can't say regarding the subspecies, because there were basically no studies done on that. So still like a work needs to be done to understand regarding the subspecies. So we just say we have Gyps fulvus, like Eurasian griffon vulture, but still probably genetical studies and morphological studies in combination could be done to understand more clearly which subspecies do we have. And yeah, basically that's it.
Okay. Another question being whether the GPS data is published of your tracking.
It's on the way to be published. We are at the moment working on the data analysis, and we will publish most probably next year.
Okay, thank you. And the last question before we move to the central part of the Flyway is whether the birds are breeding throughout the year and how many eggs do they lay every year?
So Egyptian vultures, usually we get 2 eggs, 1 or 2 eggs. For each year it's different. I have the data, but it will be published and it will be in the paper. But for Cinereus vulture, we recorded only 1 egg, and for birded vulture, only 1 egg, and for griffon, we recorded sometimes 2, sometimes 1. Yeah, it's all registered. I cannot now remember for each nest, but yeah, those are the numbers for the. But for Egyptian vulture, not from our record, but in Armenia in 90s, there was a nest with 3 successful fledglings, which means 3 also eggs. It was near Sevan Lake, and it was maybe the only case for Armenia recorded like that.
All right, thank you very much. So there are still questions in the chat, but let's keep going with the next presentation and get back more questions towards the end. So Vladimir Dobriev will be presenting next. Thank you so much, Lucine, for your presentation and for your answers. Vladimir Dobriev is the coordinator of the Central Asian Vulture Project. So we're going to the center of the Flyway now. Vladimir, the floor is yours. 20 minutes.
You. Okay, thank you very much. I'll now share my presentation. So I hope you all see my screen. I'll try to be brief, but first of all, I would like to raise a warning, if I could say so, that I'll start from one point in time onwards, but then I have to jump here and there just to get the general expression and just to explain you about the Central Asian Vultures project, how we came to be and what our goals are. As anything else, we also have a starting point. It was 2017. I'll give you the story. So if you're interested in numbers or more details or data, you can just drop your questions on the chat box, because I'm pretty sure I cannot fit within 20 minutes to explain everything, but I hope it will be clear enough and you'll get the general idea. So everything started 2017. This is the first time I found myself in Uzbekistan and in the central Kazılkum Desert, and back then generally there was almost nothing done on vultures, almost nothing actually, with few exceptions, but there were so many questions rather than answers. So this is how we came up with the idea of building up a project that will solely try to solve and find answers to so many questions about vultures of Central Asia that we couldn't find in the literature or anywhere else published, but we're interested in to find out what happens there for a couple of reasons. First of all, that's a really huge region. I'll show you later a map just and Europe as a reference to get an impression. I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of the of where Central Asia is and how big it is, but still, and then because in so many other regions of the world, and especially across Europe, Asia, and Africa, there is so much done about vultures and so many projects and so many organizations involved in vulture conservations, trying to solve and to tackle different threats that different vulture species face. In 2017, this was not the case for Central Asia at all. As I said, only just some old records and actually, by the way, only one national action plan published in Uzbekistan. So more or less, this was the most recent data on the Egyptian vulture in this region. As you know, there are five vulture species across Central Asia, like the Himalayan, Griffon, Egyptian, the Birded, and the Cinereus vulture. So plenty of them. But as I said, many questions and almost no answers to anything that you can ask for about vultures. This was actually our kind of this is how we started. This is why we decided to start working there at first place, trying to answer the questions, and of course to gather as much the more information as possible for vultures, so we can eventually try to find solutions for problems and threats for these species that occur in the region. As you can see, we jumped to 2021 because it took us 4 years to kind of wrap up a project to come up with clear ideas and how to get the work done. Back then, it's literally 4 people that we kicked off the project in 2021 when we get the first funding for the project, and most of all, it was actually focused on the Egyptian vulture because 5 species in a vast region is quite difficult to tackle at once. But the Egyptian vulture is the only one that is endangered of all the 5 species of Central Asia. Then it's the only true migratory species of all vultures of the old world, actually. And then this is the species that I have been working for so many years now, since 2004. So it was the logical choice for us to start with. And of course, we didn't have to invent the wheel or anything, because so many other people across Eurasia and Africa have done such a great work in coming up with methodologies, with there are blueprints out there. There is the Vultures multi-species action plan. So we had everything to start with, all the knowledge and the know-how to do the job was there already. So 2021, we start the first field work in Uzbekistan and the first tagging of Egyptian vultures in general for Central Asia. Back then, you can see on the map, so on the left across Europe, Africa, and parts of Arabia and Asia Minor, you can see that these are actually tracks of Egyptian vultures, just to illustrate how many Egyptian vultures have been tracked in Europe back then, and there was nothing about Central Asia. So essentially, we didn't know anything about the birds, where they will go, if they will migrate to Saudi Arabia or to Africa. We were not aware, so this is why we decided to start with tagging vultures. This is Central Asia. Just getting back to my point with the vastness of the area, and that if you just need to focus on in certain areas, so you don't get lost and overwhelmed by the size and by just the mere scale of the region, if you want to accomplish something and get something done with vultures. This is the data actually that we referred to initially, that has been published in the Uzbekistan National Action Plan for the Egyptian vulture. Really nice document, and people from the Institute of Zoology and also from the Uzbekistan Birdlife Partner have done a great job before us in collecting and summarizing data on the distribution and the numbers of the Egyptian vultures, and this was a really good starting point for us. The first year was quite tough. We were a really small team, 3 of us, and some crazy approaching and scaling of nests, as you can see on the photos. But on the photo to the up right, you can see the first Egyptian vulture ever tagged in Central Asia. This is Aris, who is still alive nowadays, and one of our let's say favorite birds. Of course, except for tagging, the Egyptian vouchers. We only tag juveniles the first year. We actually established a very good cooperation with the Institute of Zoology in Uzbekistan. Our friends there who are helping us with the permissions, and later on they got engaged with the field work and are nowadays our very good partner in Uzbekistan, supporting us in the field work with the documents and anything else. Of course, the first year that we worked in the field in Uzbekistan, we found so many interesting things and so many so many challenges. And the new some of the new findings were, at first place, number one was the dump sites of Central Asia. If you're not aware, but dump sites are usually used in they're known to be used by Egyptian vultures in other parts of the world of the range of the species, but especially in Europe, they're almost gone because the population has shrunk. But now we found that in Central Asia, these places are still vital. Many birds there, and this came as a surprise. Another surprise was the number of the birds at these dump sites, hundreds of them congregating together to feed. And this was the first red lamp that we got. We're finding very important, and we're discovering really important facts about the Egyptian vulture in Uzbekistan. Something else that comes as a surprise was the number of the birds. So the estimation of the national population for Uzbekistan is 135 pairs in the national action plan, but the numbers of the birds that in the nests that we found in the south of the country and in Kızılkum Desert didn't fit the numbers provided in the action plan. So this actually made us asking more questions about it. I'm jumping slightly a bit further in the future, just to explain why we're speaking also about the Flyway, and not only about Uzbekistan, and how what we found after with the first stacks of Egyptian vultures. Left down is the map of the first 3 birds that migrated from 2021, and then the corner up and right is these are the migratory tracks of 26 birds over more than 70 trips between the wintering grounds and the breeding grounds. So you can see that the majority of the birds, actually almost all of them, end up in India and Pakistan, which turn out to be the main wintering grounds for the Egyptian vulture of Central Asia. But going back in time, again, going back to 2022, as I already mentioned, Central Asia is quite big. So the second year, we decided that we need to contact other colleagues from the region that work in the region or are willing to work in the region, so we can unite force and efforts to study and to help the vultures in Central Asia. This is how we reach out to the colleagues in Kazakhstan, the Biodiversity Research and Conservation Center in Kazakhstan, and also our colleagues from the Raptor Research Conservation Network from Russia. So we met them in Kazakhstan in July 2022. We had a really nice time together. We worked together side by side, and we decided that we can do something together about it, together about the Egyptian vulture, and why not something more about the rest of the vultures in the future. And this is the first time we actually start working together with our colleagues with our colleagues in Kazakhstan. Of course, we got back in Uzbekistan to kind of wrap up the field season and finish the job, the work with tagging more Egyptian vultures in Uzbekistan. This time we were trapping only adult birds at dump sites in the south of Uzbekistan. Jump forward to 2023. As we already knew where our birds spend the winter. So what was left to do is just visit these sites. Hopefully, we already had some contacts in the area. This is Dawa Bora, who actually invited me to come to India and visit together these sites. Thanks to him, I managed to visit the area in early 2023 and to find amazing congregations of not only Egyptian vultures, but also griffons, cinereous vultures, steppe eagles, just amazing sight. We managed to do some counts of the birds there and try to find some of the Egyptian vultures that we dug in Central Asia in this particular congregation site in Rajasthan. This is where I also met Krishna Busau from Nepal, and I'll get back to him later in my presentation. But thanks to these guys, great story in India, and actually I learned so much, and also we like the pictures start revealing before our eyes. Later on in 2023, we organized the first joint fieldwork with the colleagues from Kazakhstan, and in the summer of 2023, so they came around in Uzbekistan. We worked together in the field. There was a field training for them, how to find Egyptian vulture nests, how to count birds and dump sites, also how to ID Egyptian vulture plumages and different ages of the birds. And there on the field were also guys from the Institute of Zoology, Krishna Busau from Nepal, Alona and Gera from Kazakhstan. We had a great time. We did a really nice job, and it pushed further our collaboration, because later this year we also developed a project together that eventually funded part of our work in 2024. 2024, we tried to reach out for more partners across the region, and hopefully NABU Kyrgyzstan replied to gave us a hint, and we organized a training workshop for them in Kyrgyzstan. This is where also we kind of fostered our future collaboration with our friends from Nature Kyrgyzstan and Nature Foundation of Tajikistan. Later this year in 2024, we also organized the first, I would say, regional-wide training for people for experts for experts across Central Asia, and also experts from the Ministry of Ecology of Uzbekistan. The corner up right, you can see a picture from the field trip with representatives from Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan, people from the Ministry of Uzbekistan of Ecology, and also experts from outside Asia. Of course, field work in 2024 was also helpful for all of us to kind of get more familiar with each other, work again together. And we also kicked off another vulture species, and we start tagging cinereous vultures in both Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. You can see the team up the corner up right in Kazakhstan with colleagues from Sirdarya Turkestan Regional Nature Park, and we worked in Uzbekistan with colleagues from Nuratau State Reserve, again colleagues from the Institute of Zoology in Uzbekistan. We also had a very fruitful field work in the south of Uzbekistan, tagging more Egyptian vultures and doing the dump site counts as well. 2024 was also very successful in terms of establishing more collaboration across Asia. We actually visited Nepal and support Krishna Busau in his research, and we did the first tagging of Egyptian vultures in Nepal together. We trapped adult and immature birds together with him, and Since ever we know each other, Krishna has been always very helpful for Central Asian Vouchers project. So we appreciate a lot the cooperation with him and the opportunity to work with him in Nepal as well. This is how we reached to 2025, which was also even more interesting, and I would say even more intensive. Again, we repeated like we did a lot of field work across 3 countries. In Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, we were tagging Egyptian and Cineres vouchers with our colleagues and partners from Nature Foundation Kyrgyzstan. We also did the first tagging of Egyptian vouchers in Kyrgyzstan to juvenile birds. Together, we spent the end of July together in the field. We were also sampling a small area in the south of Kyrgyzstan, and we were scouting for Egyptian voucher nests and trying to actually registering the breeding success and mapping all the nests in the area. Quite successful field work and very amazing cooperation with our partners there. As I already said, there are so many challenges ahead of us, and the future plans actually are quite complicated. I can't really explain it in few words or few minutes, but we'll be mostly focusing on field work, both in wintering and breeding grounds. We need to organize more trainings for partners, for institutions, for the authorities, because the work is impossible without the participation and engagement from local or from national authorities and institutions. They provide, first of all, the permissions for us, and then on a national scale, it's a must to have them on our side. We hope for building new partnerships across Central Asia on the Flyway and also in the wintering grounds, of course. A next step would be establishing a regional database, actually Flyway database for the vouchers in Central Asia. And also something essential that is still missing in the region, but we're working upon it, is cooperation and supporting different rescue centers in countries, in the Central Asian countries, because there are many birds, I would say, vouchers that eventually find their way to zoos or these rescue centers across Central Asia. So this needs to be addressed and tackled as well, because we want these birds to be released again and to contribute to the voucher conservation. Of course, something important that we shouldn't forget is first of all, is developing of national action plans for vouchers in different Central Asian countries. So far, I already said there is one for Uzbekistan that needs to be updated. There is a draft version of a national action plan for the Egyptian voucher for Turkmenistan. It's only a draft; it has never been published or anything. Presenting and publishing the results of the project is something that we are working now on, and I hope by the mid of next year there will be few publications that will come out with explaining migratory routes and some of the threats, of course. Another important issue is the fundraising. Central Asian Vouchers project is solely funded by different donors, and we are kind of fighting for more and more funds constantly, just to be able to feed different actions across the different countries, of course, with close cooperation with our partners. Yeah, my final slide. I would like to express our gratitude to everyone who was involved, really so many people across so many countries, our partners at Whole Conservancy, OSME, the Voucher Conservation Foundation, who provided tax for Cineres vouchers, and all our partners in the different states across Central Asia. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vladimir, for this history of the Central Asian Vulture Project. And thank you again for the amazing work that you and the team have been doing. You are kind of like filling a hole that was like a major issue for a while. And thank you for your commitment to the region. Are there questions from the room or on the chat? There was a question on the institutional arrangements of the CACN. I'll let the co-chairs of the network answer that. Are there questions on this presentation itself? Not quite yet. I do have a question actually that is kind of also reaching out to the question of that was raised before. It's more of an open question to all our present speakers. So Vladimir, Chris, and Lucine, based from your presentations that are kind of like regional based, where is the potential for connection between SAVE in South India, the Central Asian Vulture Project, any vulture work, vulture conservation in Armenia and in the Caucasus? Have you already identified areas where this cooperation could be taking place?
Shall I be first
Wants
or
to go
Lucy?
first? Go for it, Vladimir. You were the first to speak.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot for the question and actually for like giving us the chance to present the work. But yeah, I mean there is room for a lot of work and collaborations, and we kind of have already started. I forgot to mention that Chris here, he actually is helping a lot with suggestions and ideas about like work in India and what can be done and how we can kind of plan future work and stuff. Of course, there is so much more to be done. We are literally just scratching the surface, but as I mentioned, we just started. Obviously, most of the birds I'm not presenting data or anything, but if I show you the maps of the scenarios vultures that we tagged, you see that they also end up in India. So Rajasthan in India and some areas in Pakistan are super important for both species. We also see in Rajasthan many griffon vultures, and so it's top one spot for migrants from Central Asia, like I'm speaking about vultures, of course. So yeah, there is definitely a relation, and future work should involve South Asia and very close cooperation with safe partners and safe countries, of course. We see that some of the Egyptian vultures follow the southwestern route, migratory route, like the one that steppe eagles, for example, follow. So some of these birds also end up in Arabia, and this is actually where this migratory flyway overlaps with the Eastern Mediterranean flyway. So we need to think about also working in this part of the world, because some of these birds from Central Asia end up also there. And this is also how we came to speak and to discuss it with Lucina at first place as well. This obvious overlap of migration routes and flyway corridors. So there is plenty of room for ideas for future collaborations and partnerships.
Thank you, Vladimir. Chris and Lucine, would you like to add something? Go for
I
it.
just wanted to add some note that what unites us actually is that there is almost no like big funding for our regions. I mean, it had not been there for years, and for Europe everything is done, but for our regions it's still too many things to be done. And if we unite our work together and work not only by country, but like make a collaboration and work all together, Caucasus, Central Asia, South and Southeast Asia together, I think we will get even like greater results. So we can discuss on how we can bring everything together and try to develop action plans together, let's say, of our visions.
Yeah, just from my side, yeah, no, I totally agree. From SAVE side, I think already SAVE is covering quite a big area, and the definition of how we define those countries was where the critically endangered species were, you know, are breeding. But I'm really delighted the way, you know, the SAVE Open Day and things has just naturally embraced more engagement and presentations from Central Asia. That's been, I think it's been exciting for people in the SAVE region to hear about that and to exchange a few ideas and things. But I really like the idea of somehow, yeah, working it out so that we can, yeah, at least link up. I'm cautious about trying to make it all one thing. I think that might it might be just too big an area, but that doesn't mean. I mean, we can work in you know, linked up, and I think the network is it's just evolving naturally, actually, which is very positive. And yeah, I think well, I'm sure SAVE is more than open to doing that. And also, in my presentation, I mentioned the challenge of getting governments to engage. And I hope that maybe, you know, this network and the SAVE network and we can all help that process of somehow linking up and engage. I mean, there's a limit to what you can do with engaging governments, but yeah, I think it can only help. So, but let's think about it more and talk about it more. I saw Catherine's message in the text suggesting that, you know, we could discuss this more, and yeah, let's do that. I'm sorry, our SAVE chair isn't here now, and perhaps my fault for not making sure that Jemima was aware. But yeah, I think SAVE. I know there's a few people here who are very much active in the SAVE network already. So yeah, let's build on it.
Amazing. Thank you to the three of you for these words. And I think the questionnaire that Lucine will be sending out quite soon could work actually as a basis to engage that conversation, how to connect and intensify the collaboration between these various components of the CAF. There were two more questions in the chat. I think we have a little bit of time to answer them. The first one and the latest one was whether intervening in nests was not a little bit invasive for the birds. Who would like to answer that? Vladimir, Lucine?
Yeah, I can answer. Like Lucy can add if she wants to. Well, depends on the species, and usually depends on how and when you do it. So there is no other way to tag or to ring or to sample a bird unless you don't actually hold the bird or get it. So we usually pick up the timing of nest approaching really carefully. So we usually get in nests when chicks are more or less well developed, at a certain age or over a certain age, so they're really well developed and actually prior to fledgling. And then it's also the timing. We don't spend more time than necessary in the nests, and plus it's something that has been tested for decades now. I can just give a reference from Bulgaria. I mean, I'm getting inside nests in Bulgaria since 2007, and I have been doing this for 20 years already. There we don't have a single case of a pair that has shift or failed to breed because of entrance in the nest. Even though in some cases, because it was needed, we have entered the nest multiple times per year. And also, like, we're also using trail cameras in nests. We go inside to change battery packs and SD cards, and when chicks are inside, well, we keep certain rules. There are many rules that you should always be careful and really swift and quick. But of course, it doesn't mean that something will go wrong. Just if we keep the rules and we are aware of the species, of the nest and the particular case, there is nothing to be worried about.
Thank you. There was another question from Simenta Mehdi, which was about the migration of Cinere's vulture. He's based in Assam, so Northeast India. And the question was that the migration of Cinere's vulture in this area has become very low. What could be the main cause of this? Is climate change affecting their migration in the region in Assam? I think that's a question for you, Chris. You have been labeled South Asian expert for tonight, so.
Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer to that. So no, and Cinere's vulture has received less attention, being less threatened. So no, probably other people better placed to answer that. Although, I mean, it's always been fairly scarce in those areas, and but no, I don't really have an answer, I'm afraid. Sorry.
More research to be done. Thank you, Chris. Are there more questions in the chat or in the public? If you have, just raise your hand. This is the end of the week. Everybody is tired, waiting for a tea or anything else. So then let's conclude our webinar here. I'd like to thank you, everybody. Thank you all again for your participation. A massive thank you to Chris, Vladimir, and Lucine for their presentations. Really, really fascinating. And thank you to everybody for your questions and your participation, really. I'd like to remind you that we will put that video online. It was live streamed on YouTube. So we'll share in our next newsletter, probably the link. And stay tuned for the questionnaires that we'll send for the Vulture Working Group. And once again, happy World Migratory Bird Day. May your list be plentiful tomorrow and during the weekend. Thank you very much, everybody. And yes, see you on the 19th of November for the next webinar.
Many thanks
very
Sharon.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, everyone.
much.
Great presentations. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Keep this network going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.